I looked over the top of the camera's display screen, wanting to see it through my own eyes and not through the filter of the device. This was too real, too raw for that. This was why I loved living here. The Revenant Forest on Demeter was like stepping back in time, tens of thousands of years, and watching an Earth before humans built their cities. Here, animals that had been extinct for millennia, mastodons and saber-toothed cats and megatherium and dozens more, stalked and grazed and lived alongside wolves and elk and deer, all of them engineered and incubated here for the Revenant Project. Demeter was one of the oldest colonies in the Commonwealth, and when we'd found it, it had very little in the way of complex life. There was enough of an ecology of fungi and lichen to keep the atmosphere breathable, but not much more. It had been the perfect place to introduce Earth life without worrying about destroying an existing ecosystem, and it had been the perfect place to start the Revenant Project. DNA samples had been harvested decades before and preserved and later duplicated, and here they'd come to life. The Revenant Forest had been the first area they'd been reintroduced, and was still the densest concentration on the planet, but the ecosystem had been spreading across the temperate zones of this world for decades now, and there had been other introductions in the polar zones. If we didn't screw it up, and the Tahni didn't invade again and force us to eat a bunch of the herd animals again, this place would be even cooler in a century or so. And it was all playing out in front of me. The bull elk was rushing in now, but 3 or 4 wolves were snapping at him, trying to keep him distracted while the others finished off the calf. The poor thing was bleeding in terror, blood running down its flanks from the wolves hanging off its haunches, sinking in their teeth. It was ugly and brutal and depressing, but I'd seen worse. I'd done worse. In the year I'd been trapped here during the Tahni occupation, I'd done a lot worse. Left for dead in a failed attempt to take the colony back from the enemy, the rest of my Marine Force Recon platoon ambushed and slaughtered, I'd joined up with Sophia and what was left of the human resistance, and did what I could to fight the Tahni with what we had. By the time the Commonwealth military had come back into the fight and given us hope we could win this thing, I'd developed an affinity for those wolves and the merciless efficiency they showed towards their prey.
"You ever see this before?"
Sophia asked me softly, leaning into my arm and settling in to watch.
"Back on Earth? Before the war?"
"I saw wolves a few times with Gramps," I told her, eyes still locked on the side of the cow and the bull trying to chase off the pack, wearing themselves out as the wolves dodged away nimbly. In the Canadian Rockies, and again in Arizona. Different subspecies in Arizona. The Mexican wolf. I was never around when they made a kill, though.
"Gramps?"
Sophia repeated.
"That was your great-grandfather, right?"
I nodded, realizing I hadn't thought about him, or any other part of my former life, for most of the last 3 years. "Master Gunnery Sergeant Cesar Torres," I said proudly. "Old United States Marine Corps, back when there was a United States."
"Geez, how old was he?"
she blurted, actually looking away from the kill. "He'll be 203 in a month," I said. "If he's still alive." I shrugged. Mom seemed to think he was.
"You haven't heard from him since you joined the Marines?"
I snorted at the understatement. "I haven't seen him since the night my mother sent an assassin after her own grandfather," I corrected her. "And I killed the guy, then changed my identity and went on the run to the Marine Corps."